At the community meeting, Susan, furious, tried to push past my 5-year-old daughter, Emma, by shoving her wheelchair aside. Susan even leaned over Emma's back to grab a paper, causing her to collapse. The sickening crack of Emma's vertebrae echoed in my ears. "Get up, kid," Susan snapped, oblivious to the fact that I was the assistant commissioner, and her life was about to change forever. Please share your location in the comments below before watching the full video. Also, consider liking and subscribing for more stories about people like Susan. The monthly HOA meeting was running late, as usual under Margaret Thompson's leadership. Most residents called her Susan. Behind her back she had the stereotypical haircut, the entitled attitude, and an endless list of complaints about the other members of Maple Grove's community. I quietly said, "Excuse me, we need to sit," as I maneuvered Emma's wheelchair toward the accessible area. Margaret didn't look up from her papers. "The meeting's already started. You should have been here earlier." "We were at physical therapy," I explained, keeping calm for Emma's sake. "My daughter was born with osteogenesis imperfecta, brittle bone disease, where the slightest pressure could fracture her bones. That's why I was so careful with her wheelchair." Margaret muttered, "Not my problem," as people started to notice. With an annoyed sigh, she pointed to a spot by the wall. "That's fine. Park there and be quiet." I wheeled Emma to the spot, nodding my thanks. My sweet daughter smiled at everyone, trying to be brave. At 5, she'd already endured 37 fractures in her short life, pain most adults couldn't imagine. "Daddy, I'm thirsty," Emma whispered. I reached into her bag, but realized I'd forgotten her water bottle in the car. "I'll get it, princess." "1 minute," I said, squeezing her tiny hand. I turned to Mrs. Lee, sitting nearby. "Can you watch Emma while I grab her water?" The kind, elderly woman smiled. "Of course, go ahead." I rushed to the parking lot, grabbed the bottle, and was back in under 2 minutes. But as I returned, a scream stopped me cold. Emma's scream. I dropped the bottle and sprinted into the meeting room. A crowd had formed around something on the floor. They parted when they saw me. Emma lay face down, her wheelchair tipped over. Susan was sitting on her back, reaching across the table for a stack of papers. "Emma," I yelled, shoving through. Susan looked annoyed. She was in the way. I told her to move her chair. "Get off her," I roared, my hands shaking as I pushed Susan off my daughter's fragile body. That's when I heard a crack no parent of a child with brittle bone disease ever wants to hear. Emma stopped screaming, which was worse. "Call 911, I shouted, dropping to my knees beside her. "Don't touch her, she has brittle bone disease." Mrs. Lee was already on her phone, frantically giving details to the emergency operator. I sat close to Emma's face. Her eyes opened, filled with tears. "Daddy, I can't feel my legs," she whispered. My heart shattered. Susan stood nearby, brushing off her expensive pants. I barely touched her. "She's so dramatic." I ignored her, focusing on Emma. "Help's coming, princess." "Stay still." Susan scoffed to someone. "Brittle bone disease? Is that even real?" I wanted to scream, but Emma needed me calm. I held her small hand until the paramedics arrived. One EMT recognized me. "Commissioner Harris, is this your daughter?" I couldn't speak, just nodded. Whispers spread. "He's the assistant commissioner for the county, oversees all disability services." Susan's face paled. At the hospital, doctors confirmed my worst fears. Emma's T4 vertebra was fractured. She'd need emergency surgery, months of rehab, and might never walk normally again. Dr. Patel said, "Commissioner Harris, I'm so sorry. We'll do everything we can." I stepped out to call my boss, Commissioner Reynolds. My hands shook so badly I could barely hold the phone. "John Harris here. I need emergency leave." "What happened, John?" Commissioner Reynolds, who'd known Emma since she was a baby, listened as I explained, my voice breaking. After a long silence, he said, "Take all the time you need. And John, use every resource we have." I understood. As Assistant Commissioner of Health and Human Services, I oversaw county disability services, including accessibility laws and protections for vulnerable citizens. I made another call to my old law school friend, now the district attorney. 3 days later, Susan barged into Emma's hospital room without knocking, waving a paper. "This is ridiculous. I've been suspended from the HOA board pending an investigation, and now there's talk of criminal charges." I stood slowly from beside Emma's bed, where she lay recovering from surgery, tubes, and wires everywhere. Lower your voice, I said quietly. My daughter's resting. Susan continued, softer but still defiant. This is a huge misunderstanding. You need to drop any complaints. I stared at her. Mrs. Thompson, do you know what I do? She blinked. Some government job? I'm the Assistant Commissioner of Health and Human Services for this county. I enforce disability protections, ADA compliance, and prevent discrimination against vulnerable people. Her face lost more color. My daughter has osteogenesis imperfecta, brittle bones. I told the HOA board and you when we moved here 8 months ago. That's why we built the ramp at our house. That's why Emma uses a custom wheelchair. She stammered. I didn't remember. You didn't care? I corrected. And now my 5-year-old may never walk again because you couldn't show basic decency. It was an accident, she insisted. An accident is something unforeseen. This was negligence. You knew her condition. You were told to be careful. Instead, you sat on a disabled child to grab papers. Susan glanced at the door. I'm sorry for any harm, but you're blowing this out of proportion. Let's be reasonable. Reasonable. I repeated, my voice eerily calm. Mrs. Thompson, you have no idea what's coming. I've spent my career protecting people like my daughter from people like you. And I'm very good at my job. Justice moved swiftly. Susan faced criminal charges for negligent assault on a vulnerable person. The county prosecutor, my law school friend, took the case personally. We also filed a civil lawsuit against the HOA, which had ignored complaints about Susan's behavior toward disabled residents. Security footage from the community center showed Susan pushing past Emma's wheelchair, causing it to tip, and sitting on her back to reach across the table the moment Emma's spine broke. Jurors cried watching it. Susan's expensive lawyer painted her as a well-meaning volunteer who made a mistake, but witnesses told a different story. Mrs. Lee described Susan mocking Emma's fancy princess chair at past meetings. Mr. Rivera, who uses a hearing aid, testified about Susan covering her mouth when speaking to him, making lip reading impossible. Emails from the former HOA secretary showed multiple warnings about Susan's treatment of disabled residents. I stayed calm and professional in court, returning each day to the rehab facility where Emma was relearning to use her body. Did you get the bad lady, Daddy? She'd ask. Justice is coming, princess, I'd say. And it did. Susan was convicted on all charges. No prison time, but 2,000 hours of community service and 5 years probation, focused on working with disabled children. The civil case was worse for her. The jury awarded Emma $2.5 million in damages. Susan had to sell her house to pay it. The most satisfying moment came at the HOA's emergency board meeting. The community center was packed. Every Maple Grove homeowner wanted to see Susan's downfall. The vice president, now acting president, opened the meeting. Our first order of business is to formally remove Margaret Thompson from the board. Per our bylaws, a convicted board member can be removed by a simple majority vote. I sat in the back, not wanting to subject Emma to a tense meeting. She was home with a nurse, watching her favorite cartoons. Susan stood alone at the front. I'd like to speak before you vote. The room went silent. I braced for excuses or blame shifting. Instead, she said, I was wrong. I've had time to think since the incident. My actions, how I treated others, especially Mr. Harris's daughter, her voice broke. There's no excuse. I was in a hurry and thought my convenience mattered more than a child's safety. I hurt her. I deserve whatever consequences come. I stared, stunned by what seemed like genuine remorse. I've listed my house to pay the settlement. But before I leave this community, I have a proposal. She pulled out a folder. I've drafted a new accessibility plan for Maple Grove, better ramps at the pool and community center, streamlined medical accommodation approvals, and a committee of residents with disabilities to review all HOA decisions. The room was silent. I worked with disability advocates on this, she continued. It won't undo what I did, but it might stop someone else from getting hurt. As people left the meeting, Susan approached me cautiously. Commissioner Harris, I know you have every reason to hate me, but your daughter's courage has changed me. Her outlook, despite everything, I cut her off. Save it. Actions matter more than words. She nodded. Fair. Would you review the accessibility plan? If I missed anything, please tell me. I took the folder. I'll look at it. Thank you, she said. And please tell Emma I'm so sorry. 6 months later, Emma was back in school. Her new wheelchair had extra back support, and doctors were unsure if she'd ever walk unassisted again. But her spirit was unbroken. I'd taken charge of the county's new Disability Affairs office, spurred by Emma's ordeal to fix systemic gaps. One day, as I picked Emma up from school, she pointed across the courtyard. "Daddy, look. It's her." Susan was helping a boy in a wheelchair navigate a new ramp, part of her community service at the school's disability program. She froze when she saw us. Emma waved, and after a moment, Susan waved back. "She's not so mean anymore," Emma said. "Miss Carter says she reads to the kindergartners every day." Kneeling beside her wheelchair, I asked, "Want to say hi?" Emma thought about it. "Not today, Daddy. Maybe later." On the drive home, passing new accessible playground equipment from Susan's plan, Emma said something profound. "Daddy, I think that sad lady's trying to fix her broken parts, like me." From the mouth of a child. A year after the incident, Emma's progress amazed everyone. She could stand briefly and take a few steps with braces. Her doctors were cautiously hopeful. Maple Grove had transformed into a model for inclusive community design, with me as the accessibility advisor. 3 more families with disabled children moved in, drawn by its reputation. Susan sold her house, but stayed, living in a modest apartment and working full-time as a paid advocate at the county's Disability Resource Center. She's also studying social work at night. Last week, she came to our house with a gift for Emma book about a superhero in a wheelchair. "May I come in?" she asked nervously. I stepped aside. Emma looked up from her drawing and smiled. "Hi, Miss Susan. Want to see my new brace? It has butterflies." I watched the woman who'd broken my daughter's body help lift her spirit. Sometimes, justice comes through transformation, not punishment. I could have destroyed Susan with my position, connections, and motive. For a while, I planned to. But Emma showed me another kind of strength through ability to see someone face their own cruelty and change. "Daddy says you're helping other kids now," Emma told Susan. Tears filled Susan's eyes. "I am. And you're my greatest teacher." Emma laughed. "But I'm just a kid." I chimed in. "Sometimes kids are the best teachers, especially brave ones like you." As Susan left, she paused. "Thank you, Commissioner Harris, for not blocking my redemption. You had every reason to." I thought about justice, mercy, redemption, and retribution long after she left. Emma's spine was healing, stronger at the break. Maybe our community was too. That night, as I tucked Emma into bed, she asked, "Daddy, are you still mad at Miss Susan?" I considered lying, but Emma deserved the truth. "Sometimes, when I see how hard things are for you." She nodded thoughtfully. I was too, but my heart was getting too heavy. "When do you get so wise?" I asked, brushing her hair. She grinned. "Probably all the breaks. The doctor says they heal stronger." No punishment I could have demanded would have been as powerful as this. Watching my daughter rise above her pain and teach empathy, showing her father how to do the same.